This is a very brief introduction to the three types of appeals. The appeal to logos, ethos, and pathos date back to Aristotle and to the Greeks. So this is not something that is new. This is something that we have identified and have used in persuasion for hundreds of years. So let's look first of all at what a logical appeal is, or logos. It involves the argument itself, its content, and its organization. It includes the type of evidence, the organization and development of that evidence, whether or not the evidence we use is relevant, and the relationship of the argument to the larger context, whether that is scholarly or social or political, whatever context you are working within. Notice the types of evidence. We've looked at these before, and notice that some things can go between the types of appeals. They're not necessarily exclusive to one or the other. One of the things that we're going to be looking at in our rhetorical analysis is identifying these in other works. We'll start by looking at the articles that we summarized and see if we can pick out appeals to logic and ethics and emotions in those. But let's look here at types of evidence: examples, illustrations, facts and statistics, precedents, tradition, which sometimes is a logical fallacy, but we can also look at it and then work from it, laws, memories and records, expert testimony, witness testimony or opinion. When we talk about organization, it's the same kinds of organization that we've looked at before. We can also describe, we can define, we can compare and contrast, as with an analogy. Now remember that there are elements that are false logic, but they are often the flip side of reasonable argument. So be aware, and that's part of why we want to identify those, and whether or not the information we use is appropriate and relevant. When we talk about ethical appeal or ethos, we're talking about the speaker, their voice and their persona. Now, obviously, you don't know everyone's reputation. Therefore, you establish your reputation within the text. Whether or not you're credible, you use common sense. Do you show that you're familiar with the subject, both sides, pro and con, that you are aware of a perspective, that you are reasonable and show good judgment, that you respect others' values and their welfare, that you demonstrate integrity, trustworthiness, and open-mindedness, that you are confident, using your own voice, not relying on just other people's information, that you show that you understand what others are saying, that you show an appreciation for the needs of your readers and you treat them with respect and as an equal. The third appeal, which is legitimate but can also be used illegitimately, if you will, is an emotional appeal. You are aware of your audience. You want to inspire feeling, empathy, and sympathy. You want to be aware of the opposition. That also can be an emotional appeal. Acknowledging the other side. You may question their motives, but you should not appeal to prejudices. That is illegitimate. And you should be aware of the audience's cultural and emotional background. As we know, we fashion our arguments or our messages based on, we fashion our arguments based on who we're talking to. We choose our language, our examples based on our audience because that's who we're talking to. We consider all sorts of demographics, from ethnicity and age to habits, educational level, affiliations, and their birthplace or their citizenship, where they are at this point in time. And then finally, we are aware of their concerns and their needs. Now, this is a very brief introduction to these three appeals, but as you read and as you move forward, pay attention to these and see if you can identify them, both their use legitimately and their use illegitimately with false logic.